Hello. Hello. Hello all. Namaskar. A very pleasant morning to one and all present here. I, Virat Raval, on behalf of Applied Mechanics Department, LD College of Engineering, Ahmedabad, and Government Engineering College, Modhasa, welcomes you all for inaugural session of this 5-day short-term training program on disaster management and resilience building, conducted under aegis of Directorate of Technical Education and in collaboration with Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management, Gandhinagar. Let's inaugurate this session by seeking blessings with prayer of Goddess Saraswati. करियो
गणेशाय नमः।
Now, I would like to invite Professor D.H. Raval, STTP Coordinator, for welcome address.
Thank you, Virat. Very good morning to respected dignitaries, faculty members, participants, and STTP team members. I, Deepa Raval, Assistant Professor, Applied Mechanics Department, LD College of Engineering, welcome you all on inaugural ceremony of 5-day STTP on disaster management and resilience building, being organized by Applied Mechanics Department, LD College of Engineering, Ahmedabad, and Government Engineering College, Modhasa, in collaboration with Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management under aegis of Directorate of Technical Education, Gujarat. Now, the need of this training underlies in Indian subcontinent being amongst the world's most disaster-prone areas. Almost 85% of India's area are vulnerable to one or multiple types of hazards, like windstorms found in Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea, earthquakes caused by active crustal movements in Western peripheral regions. Almost 57% of land belongs to high seismic zone ranging from zone 3 to zone 5. Floods, droughts, tsunami 2004 and recent COVID-19 pandemic are among the list, to name a few. This India's vulnerability to this natural and anthropogenic disasters amounts to great losses and hinders our country's growth. This calls for we stakeholders to be capacitated for response management and disaster risk reduction, depending on the nature and type of disaster. So, this thing frames our objectives of present training, that are the first one being to provide fundamental knowledge and upgrade skills in disaster risk management in order to enhance the capabilities of our disaster managers. Training also aims to impart advanced knowledge and technical and managerial skills equipped with innovative technological advances for effective mitigation and management of disasters for overall benefit of the society. The thrust area of this STTP, spanning over 5 days and in 14 sessions, will focus primarily on following areas. First one, understanding the disaster risk and vulnerability in underlying causes, to sensitize about disaster risk in India and its implication on our sustainable development with an analysis of past and major disaster. Okay. Early warning system for preparedness and effective coordination with recent technological advances is also focused. And last but not the least, the role of emerging research and development in disaster resilience. So with this background, let us start the inaugural function with wise words from our peers. For this, firstly, I invite our Dr. G.M. Tank, Professor and Head Applied Mechanics Department, LD College of Engineering and STTP of the convener to address the audience. Sir, over to you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I hope I am clearly audible to all of you.
So, yeah, what?
Thanks.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So, honorable principals of LD College of Engineering, Ahmedabad, and the Government Engineering College, Mombasa, faculty members and participants who are present here, members of organizing committee, very warm greetings of today. I'm experiencing a deep sense of gratitude on the occasion of inauguration of 1 week interdisciplinary short-term online training program on disaster management and resilience buildings, organized jointly by Applied Mechanics Department of LD College of Engineering, Ahmedabad, and Government Engineering College, Mombasa, and it is course is sponsored by Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management, that is GIDM, Gandhinagar. As the organizer of the course mentioned, the occurrence of disaster, though unwanted, but not rare in society. It can affect the number of people in one family to people of several nations, depending on nature of disaster. Say examples are several, say a very small accident to say volcanic eruption or very large earthquake or floods, which can affect people of many nations. Disaster causes due to nature and man-made reasons. Apart from reasons Every disaster requires mitigation efforts with a sympathetic heart. We can do hardly anything to stop the disasters to occur, but it is always possible to spread very strong awareness about disaster preparedness and disaster mitigation methods. If I remember the words of Professor Anand Swarup Arya, who is pioneer of disaster management and mitigation in India, no engineer would like to become disaster engineer, but everybody would like to become excellent disaster management or mitigation engineer. This was the words said by Professor A.S. Arya on the occasion of 17th Symposium on Earthquake Engineering in year 2007. Now, the purpose of the training program is to spread knowledge about disaster management along with capacity building in disaster management. As disaster management is a course offered to all the branches of engineering in GTU as well as most of other universities. So, arrangement of this STTP or FDP is useful to many faculties of many branches, and truly its nature is interdisciplinary. Without taking much time, I wish best luck and happy learning to all the participants, and good luck to all the organizers. Thanks and regards.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your motivational and encouraging words. Your words have definitely boosted our confidence, and you have spotlighted the right area and highlighted the importance of our training. Thank you once again, sir. Moving ahead with our inaugural function. Now I invite our in-charge principal, Dr. K.P. Bargujar, sir, for opening address. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Bijay Shah, Principal GEC Mudasa, HODs of both the department, and dear participants. It is my pleasure to address you all on this inaugural function of this STTP. In fact, this specific subject is very dear to me. I tell you one story. In 2015, June 2015, I was attending the same STTP in GP Ahmedabad, and Dr. Sanghvi and all his team took so many lectures in this STTP, and I became very interested in this subject, so that after continuous 3 years, I taught this subject, because you must be knowing that disaster management is a open elective. So I used to teach subject in which flood management, building construction management, and all these things I used to taught. In fact, this year also, when this STTP is going to be placed, I wanted to attend this STTP as a participant, but due to prior commitments throughout the week, I could not do so. But I feel this is a very generic topic. This is very much useful for all the branches. So I hope you all the participants would take maximum benefit of it. And I would request the organizers to put the presentations and deliberations in open domain, so that people who are teaching, and in fact people who are related with this subject, interested in this subject, can make maximum use of it. So I wish all the best to all the participants and the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was a absolutely right note you have set for us, and it has been very motivational for us. Having you said that, you have been a constant source of inspiration in last 3 months since we are trying to coordinate this whole activities. Your immediate response has benefited us a lot to start with the first proposal. Now, going ahead, thank you very much, sir, once again. Now going ahead, I would also like to mention Professor Dr. R.K. Gajjar, Madam, Principal, LD College of Engineering and STTP patron, as well as our coordinator of this train STTP, Dr. Major C.S. Sanghvi sir, who, Professor and Head Applied Mechanics Department, GSC Modasa, as well as our coordinator of training, who has taken lots of wings to coordinate the whole activity and been a constant source of support and motivation. But sir's poor his health condition, as well as his another important engagements, could not be there for our inaugural session speech. Okay, so let us go ahead. I also like to thank both our Dr. R.K. Gajjar Madam and Sanvi sir once again for all inspiration. Now, moving ahead with our welcome address from our chief of guests. Today, we have with us one of the most eminent personality in the field of disaster management, Dr. Surya Prakash Gupta, sir, as a chief guest of this inaugural function. Sir is professor and head Geometeorological Risk Management Division at the National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. Also, sir is national coordinator at International Association for Promoting Geoethics and chairman of Community-Based Disaster Risk Management Society. I cordially invite sir for expert address on importance of disaster management and capacity building required in this area. It's our honor to have sir. Sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Deepa Rawalji. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please. Welcome, sir.
Okay. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me and providing me this opportunity to join with you in the inaugural program, along with distinguished professors, directors, and heads of the department and faculty members, including Dr. Ketan Badgujar ji, Professor Chaitanya Sanghvi ji, Dr. Gopal Tank ji, and also Dr. Virat, and many of you who have joined from LD College of Engineering, and also from Government Engineering College, Modasa, as well as from GIDM. Now, this particular topic is very important, particularly in the current context. As you know, all of us passed through a phase of disasters over the last 2 years, and currently also we are facing the threats of the monkeypox, which is a major disaster and emergency of international concern declared recently by the World Health Organization on 23rd July 2022. More than almost 19,000 cases in more than 76 countries have been reported. But we are lucky that we have just 4 cases at present, and also very proactive in trying to manage this kind of pandemics, which is an emerging threat. Now, coming back to the geophysical hazards, which most of you talked about, earthquakes, landslides, floods, tsunami, and so on. No doubt their frequencies are also increasing, and also in terms of their severity and impacts, because of our rising investments in infrastructure and development. So therefore, this topic is of major concern to every one of us, as all our, not only the lives are at stake, but even our assets and infrastructure, as well as natural resources, are at stake. You may remember that we have not only been just struck by the physical hazards from the natural environment, but also the chemical and industrial disasters. For example, one of the world's biggest industrial disaster that happened in Bhopal on 2nd and 3rd December 1984 was one of the major tragedies, chemical and industrial disasters that we have ever faced. And even during COVID-19, we faced several of the disasters, including the Bagyan oil well fire, which struck in May 2020 and could actually be extinguished only after 3 to 4 months of efforts in November 2020. Simultaneously, we are also facing parallelly multiple hazards. Now, like in COVID-19, I remember in May 2020, we had actually faced the Amphan cyclone and later on the Yas and Taute and several other such cyclones which struck. Now, the challenges are that in order to save human lives, we have to one, act very timely, efficiently, and with all necessary resources in an appropriate manner. Now, COVID-19 actually the guidelines were in terms of COVID appropriate behavior to keep a distance of 2 meters. But now if we have to save the victims, evacuate them and put them in the safe shelters, then actually we need to devise new ways and found a new challenge in terms of the combined impacts of COVID as well as the cyclones. Similarly, now in the recent time, you may have heard about the dual floods which have happened in May and in July in Assam, and many other states like Maharashtra also faced. And in the recent times, many metro cities, they have faced the urban floods. So it's all related to actually urban planning, land use planning, building bylaws, construction techniques, and our developmental strategies which we are following. And therefore, until and unless we follow the right path of our development, we will not be able to reap their benefits. Otherwise, they are all eroded away by the disasters that strike us. Now, it is well known by one of the studies which was carried out by the World Bank that almost about 2% of our GDP and 12% of our central revenue is lost in disasters. So therefore, which is a big sum, we have to be very careful. Even COVID-19 actually affected a lot the livelihoods of the people due to the lockdown conditions which we had to impose. So while we are considering that some of the disasters in terms of their hazardous nature are inevitable or non-predictable, but many of them we can assess well, and we can assess their risk and prepare against them or prevent them, mitigate them, so that they do not affect us a lot. There is Czechoslovakian proverb which states, misfortunes enter when window is left open to them. So that means we are always providing these disasters some opportunities to happen and affect us. So rather than getting tamed by these disasters, we should use our knowledge as power to tame these disasters and get rid of them so that we can reduce the incidences as well as impact of the disasters. Now, disaster management, in fact, we initiated way back in 1990. I think it was 22nd December 1989 when we declared an international decade on natural disaster reduction at the United Nations in one of the General Assembly which took place on 26 December 1989. And this IDNDR started from 1st January 1990 till this 31st December 1999. Lot of efforts went on global as well as the national level. We actually had the Yokohama conference through which we established a center sector scheme in our Government of India. At that time, it was Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, which was the nodal ministry, and the National Center on Disaster Management was established at Indian Institute of Public Administration way back on 20th March 1995. And the first World Conference, it was in fact held in Yokohama in the month of May 1994, from where the Yokohama strategy for a safer world came. So stepped on further, we actually had decadal conferences In the second World Conference, it was held at Hyogo, Kobe, where the major earthquake took place on 17 January 1995. And it was the decadal anniversary where this conference was held. And we came with Hyogo Framework of Action for 10 years from 2005 to 15, followed by another third World Conference, which was held at Sendai, which was affected by the tsunami on 11th March 2011. And we came out with the Sendai Declaration and Sendai Framework for DRR. On the other hand, at the national level, in 2005, just close to the anniversary, first anniversary of the Indian Ocean tsunami, we had the notification of the Disaster Management Act 2005. And thereafter in 2009, 22nd October, we had the National Policy on Disaster Management, followed by several guidelines on disaster management, including the earthquakes, landslides, flash floods, and so on. So number of attempts have been made at the national level. And let me tell you that because you are from the education sector and holding this FDP, these ideas are actually quite old now, almost 20 years before now. The Second Administrative Reforms Commission in 2005 actually examined this case of having a subject on disaster management at all levels of education. And it was realized at the time there were no dedicated subject on disaster management. And it was proposed that every stream of education must have at least one subject taught on disaster management. And therefore, following the Second Administrative Reforms Commission's recommendations in 2005, UGC and AICT, they followed up. 2009, the AICT actually constituted a committee. Fortunately, I was part of that curriculum development committee at the AICT, and we formulated one course, subject paper on disaster management in the year 2009, which was circulated to all engineering educational institutions by the AICT after it was approved by our that board of studies there. And it was again followed up in the year 2010 by the University Grants Commission as well. They also formulated a course for all streams of education, including science, arts, commerce, and vocational courses. And thereafter, what happened that it was realized during the meeting at UGC that we don't have trained teachers on this subject. They have not read anything on disaster management. So we need to conduct actually training of teachers as well. So we formulated a curriculum on training of teachers as well. And later on, number of FDPs have been organized, and number of UG and PG courses have been launched by various universities and engineering colleges as well as medical colleges. So all this has happened over this period of almost about 3 decades, from 1990 to 2020, and we are continuing now with the Sendai framework from 2015 to 2030. So these are briefly how we have developed our field of disaster management. And now, as per Act, it is mandatory to for each department, ministry, and organization under Government of India or central government or the state government or the local governments to prepare their DM plans. And even the local authorities, they have also been mandated to prepare the DM plans to regulate development for safety and sustenance. Now, there were a number of such agreements, which you remember 2015, we had the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and also the Paris Climate Agreement, COP21, which also looked into the emerging threats of the changing climatic conditions. So there are a number of variabilities and dynamic conditions which are being faced beside the terrain and atmospheric conditions which we are looking into. But new technologies, they are coming. They are also again exposing us to new risk. You remember during COVID-19, most of the education went digital, and many of the teachers, they didn't know how to keep themselves safe from the cyber risk and threats. It became another area to which we had to look into. So now we have multiple kinds and dimensions of threats which we are being exposed to, and we have to work from a multi-hazard risk management perspectives as per our national policy, and we are working in those directions. And I'm very happy that the colleges, the universities, and various educational institutions, they are taking now keen interest. I remember I conducted one of the FDPs in which almost 12 vice chancellors and even Union Minister of Education himself got involved into that program. So that actually indicates the kind of interest that has got generated through these efforts. And as the former General Secretary of United Nations, Kofi Annan ji, has said that an aware, informed and prepared community is better able to assess its risk, resist and respond or recover from those risks than an unaware, informed and unprepared community. And our investments in pre-disaster situation in a proactive manner actually results in very high cost-benefit ratio. Ratios can vary from 1:10 to 1:100. That's the amount of proportions that have been indicated by various studies. So I think these kind of efforts, and as per our national policy, we wanted to develop a culture of risk assessment, prevention, mitigation, preparedness, and efficient response. And this culture is only possible through the educational sector. And in fact, at the United Nations, when SFDRR was declared, one of the prime critical sector which was addressed was the education and the health sectors. So you can see the kind of importance attached to the education and the health sector at the global levels. So I'm very happy that you took this initiative, and we assure all our sports in all such activities. And I'm very happy also that GIDM, which actually received recently the Subhash Chandra Bose Award for its effort in capacity enhancement towards disaster risk reduction and resilience. I must congratulate at this occasion Shri P.K. Taneja ji, who is Director General of GIDM, leading and motivating all this along with these two educational institutions in these endeavors. So I think there is our lecture also subsequently. So my best words are that we have to take a journey towards risk reduction and resilience. And as Vivekanand ji has said, arise, awake and stop not till the goal is achieved. And goal of our national policy is zero casualty, disaster free and resilient nation. And all of us not only have this episodic events in terms of intermittent courses, but continuance of the such courses for the faculty as well as for the students. You told it was selective subject, but I would say because I remember way back in 1999 when I initiated this course on hazards and risk management at FRI in the Department of Environment Management. I remember I started as elective, but within 2 years it became mandatory because almost 100% of the students opted for it, and they found better career opportunities through this course than any other subject. So this is one of the important courses which will ensure safety. किसी शायर ने कहा है कि मंजिलें उन्हीं को मिलती हैं जो सफ़र अख्तियार करते हैं, ऐसे मुसाफिर का तो यारो रास्ते भी इंतजार करते हैं. So you started your journey towards risk reduction and resilience, and hopefully you will find your way and your destination towards zero casualty and disaster-free resilient nation. I wish all the best to everyone, safe, healthy and good quality life on an equitable, justifiable and right-based manner with good fraternity amongst all of us. And thank you very much for providing me this opportunity. All the best to you. Back to you, Dr. Deepa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We feel truly honored and blessed to have you as our keynote speaker. Sir, the thorough bird eye view from your ocean of knowledge has set a very good tone to the start of our STTP. And I thank once again your overview on different facades of disaster management, its importance at a global and national level has motivated us to attend this training wholeheartedly. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you for gracing the occasion. Now I invite, one second. Yeah, now I invite Professor Payal Andaria, Madam, co-coordinator of this STTP and assistant professor at LD College of Engineering to present the vote of thanks.
Please unmute yourself.
Done.
Yes, sir. Yes. Now am I audible? So at the end of inaugural function, I express my sincere thanks to Dr. R.K. Kajal ma'am for constant support and motivation. I thank heartily Dr. B.J. Shah sir for encouragement. My sincere thanks to Dr. K.P. Badgujar sir to spare his valuable time and for valuable guidance and support. My hearty thanks to Major Dr. C.S. Sanghvi sir, coordinator of this training program, for proactive mentorship and insightful guidance. My sincere thanks to our head of the department, Dr. G.M. Tam sir, for motivating address and valuable support.
Thank.
I also heartily thank Dr. Surya Prakash Gupta sir for such enlightening key address. I also express sincere thanks to Dr. P.K. Taneja sir, Dr. Piyush Ramteke sir from Gujarat Institute of Disaster Management GIDM, who is our MOU partner for academic and professional exchanges, scientific research and consultancy specifically in the field of earthquake resistant construction technology and disaster risk reduction framework to effectively enhance community resilience. My sincere thanks to Directorate of Technical Education, Gandhinagar, for constant support. I also express my hearty thanks to whole STTP team, Professor Deepa Raval ma'am, and our dynamic students, Virat, Vinay, Rushit, and Vasu, for organizing such a wonderful STTP. With this vote of thanks, we end inaugural session of STTP. Let's proceed to start the first session of this STTP. So now I hand over to Virat for esteemed session of Dr. Surya Prakash Gupta sir. Virat.
Thank you, ma'am. So it is the time for to start our key session. So with due respect, I would like to introduce you all with the revered personality we are having today with us, Dr. Surya Prakash Gupta sir, who is presently working as a professor and head of the Geometeorological Risk Management Division at National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, and National Coordinator at International Association for Promoting Geoethics, and also the chairman, Community-Based Disaster Risk Management Society. Sir has completed his PhD from IIT Roorkee with specialized training in disaster risk management from various globally recognized international institutions and is a recipient of UGC Scholarship, CSIR Fellowship, and World Bank Institute Academic Fellowship. Sir has also a vast experience of working in various noteworthy capacities as a member of the core group, task forces, and working groups at various national and international platforms in disaster management field, and appointed as a nodal faculty for 9 central ministries departments. Sir has been the founder and chairman of the community-based Disaster Risk Management Society in India. Sir has organized more than 300 national and international trainings, webinars, workshops, and conferences related to different aspects of disaster management. Sir has more than 150 publications as papers, reports, books, and articles to his credit, and many more feathers to his credit. Sir, we are honored to have such an established expert with vast field experience for keynote address at the start of this 5-day short-term training program on disaster management and resilience building. Now, I would like to request Dr. Surya Prakash Gupta, sir, for keynote address on challenging area of disaster risk management. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Virat. I'll just share first of all my PPT.
Yes, sir. So your screen is visible now?
Is it visible?
Sir, your audio is not coming.
Now, is it visible? Am I
Audio
audible?
yet?
Audible also? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Audio
okay. Then
is
let me.
still not there.
Huh? I think some portion of the slide it is not showing properly. Is it?
No, sir, not yet.
It's showing PPT or not?
Audible? Okay. Okay, sir, you are audible now.
Okay, then actually the topic that you assigned to me is too big to cover in 1 or 1.5 hour. So maybe I will restrict myself to some of the areas, although all these areas are important. Okay. So,
Sure.
but I would like to add some topics which are of concern now in the current context, because many of the faculty members, they may be having interest to know about the recently invading the monkeypox, which many would be worried about also. So let me just show you some of the signatures and symptoms which one can observe in and around to prevent the spread of the disease. So you can see that some kind of skin contacts and exhibitions that can be seen in this particular disease. And unlike the COVID-19, no, many media people, they have been actually representing that COVID के बाद monkeypox कहर ढाएगा, but it is not completely true, as COVID could spread very fast through air, but in this case the connectivity amongst the persons is required for longer durations, and it doesn't spread too fast as the COVID used to. So therefore we need not have that much fear amongst our mind, because once one is psychologically down, infection can invade more than otherwise. Now more than 19,000 cases have been reported, but only 5 deaths have happened since 4th May 2022 to 26 July. in almost 76 countries where it has been reported. And these are the major signs which you may also find, that chills, headache, fever, exhaustion, swollen lymph nodes, muscles and backaches, lesions, which I had just shown you the photograph, which can be seen. But normally this particular virus takes more time. In case of coronavirus, the incubation period was about 2 weeks or less. But in case of the monkeypox, it is almost 5 to 21 days. So this is what we witnessed during COVID-19 also. So sanitation and cleanliness, hygiene, and taking care of the livelihood of the people. These are major instances which I just wanted to share of the recent times in terms of monkeypox and COVID-19. Now coming down to the landslide, which was one of the topics proposed to me to discuss. The recent most landslide which actually caused death is the one which happened in Manipur and the Nonne district, when more than 49 people they were found killed, and about 12 were missing in this particular landslide. And one of the important concerns is that it is the area which was known for the occurrence of landslide, and people were residing at that area. Then the Amarnath cave disaster, which had also happened during this month of July 2022, the day before we have passed that month. Today is the first day of the August, and around 16 deaths were reported and 40 were found missing. So these are the situations at the cave which were witnessed, and people were rescuing. And then in the year 2021 October, we had Kokyar landslide in which 6 human lives were claimed. So I'm just trying to show almost every year or every month during the monsoon periods, we have come across landslides which result into not only loss of human lives but also our assets and infrastructure. But Seri landslide in Himachal Pradesh, it killed more than 13 people. A bus also fell and the bridge was washed away because of this. Then Chembur, Vikhroli, and purpose of showing these landslide is that landslides are not restricted in one part of the country or in no one area affecting one kind of population, but it is widely distributed, and it happens very suddenly and causes heavy devastation and loss of human lives. In July 2021, we had almost about 30 casualties in Maharashtra. Then 7th February 2021, it was Sunday morning at around 10:30 a.m. when the debris flow took place in the Rishi Ganga and Dholi Ganga river, and about 204 people they got killed because of this debris flow, which was very sudden, unexpected and uncertain at that particular time in that particular valley. And this also resulted in formation of a lake which posed the future threats and risk. And also the dam sites both at the Rishi Ganga power project and the Tapovan power projects, they were highly adversely affected by this particular event, and been actually buried alive. They were trapped within the tunnels which where the debris flushed and buried them within that. So this was the situation which we found afterwards, that the whole of the tunnel actually the debris gushed in and completely filled, and there was no way to escape. So you can imagine the plight of the people who were working within the tunnel at that particular time. Similarly, often we consider it is the Himalayan region which is more affected by landslides and casualties are happening. I'm showing you some of the cases from the South India. Now this is one of the case in the Munnar Eduki Hill, where the landslides happen and around 70 people they got killed on 6th August 2020. Then in Karnataka, Kodagu district, many landslides happened and resulting in casualties. Almost all for 3 years, both 2019, 18 as well as 20, the landslides that happened and caused problems. Similarly in Assam, be it the northwest Himalayan region, northeastern ranges, or the western Ghats or the northeastern Ghats, the eastern Ghats, they are been faced with landslides. Wherever we have the hills, the landslides have been reported. This is one of the landslides in the year 2019. So you can see, I can show you cases of devastating landslides of socio-economic and environmental importance almost for every year in different parts of our country. I'm showing just instances of those events which has happened in the Western Ghats, in Kavalarp area, where around 59 deaths had happened, or even more they were reported later on. So these are the landslides which happened along with the floods which occurred in Kerala during the year 2018. The college building, this is one of the landslides where a government college building has been very adversely affected. Not only its classrooms, but even library, laboratories, and other facilities, they were all affected by the landslide, and the residential buildings. Many casualties have happened at this particular site who are living in these buildings. Then Himachal Pradesh, Kandaghat, you can see the vehicles completely trapped under the debris. There is no way to escape from such landslides. Every year, and almost 46 casualties happened in this particular landslide when it happened at the midnight. You can see 12:30 a.m. on 13th August 2017. The bus was moving from Manali to Katra, and 3 people died, and there was another bus which was also affected where 42 people got killed. It was going from Chamba to Manali. So not only the buses, but even the bikers and the people who were moving along that road at that particular time, they all got affected. Arunachal Pradesh, another northeastern state, about 14 people got killed in laptop, and Bastadi landslide in Pathorgarh district, where the landslide struck in double episodes. First instance happened at around 4:30 a.m. and later on the next step also next landslide happened after half an hour, and it actually engulfed people, 14 persons, who actually rescued the other people in the first instance episode of the landslide. This was the status, and this is all it takes time for rescue forces or response forces to reach there, and then only the dead bodies can be required. There is hardly any person alive after that. Malin landslide in Ambagaon district of Pune district that had happened and killed around 140 people. Kedarnath tragedy which happened on 16th June 2013, killing around 680 persons and missing more than 4,200 persons. And one of the infamous landslide, Kalyasore landslide. Now I had to go to this area. I was there in Uttarakhand from 11 to 17th of June 2013 when this happened. I was sent back to Uttarakhand, and this slide I crossed in the morning at 11 a.m. on 21st June, and you can see there at 4:30 p.m. This was the situation. Whole of the road which I drove in my personal car, driving personally, went into Alaknanda River, almost about 200 to 250 meter down. So you can imagine the plight of the people who have to respond to these situations, and many other such landslides which happened because of toe erosion by the river. And many of the roads and access routes, they were all completely damaged by such landslide. The Aizol landslide which happened in the 13th on 11th May, which killed almost about uh, 30 people, 35 people, when a PWD building fell on other residential buildings and caused problem. Heritage structure like train line of the Darjeeling, it lost its base. It cannot be any more functional. So even the UNESCO declared World Heritage Sites, they are also posed threats and risk due to these landslides. Another instance, I am just sharing some of the important instances where now this instance is of a school, an educational building, where 18 children on 18th August 2010, between the age of 5 to 12 years, they got killed by a landslide. They were buried alive within the room in which they were studying. So these kind of instances have been happening, and if we are not careful in appropriately siting, locating, preventing, protecting our structures against landslides, will not be able to stop such instances. In this particular instance, a family which had 3 children, they lost all the 3 children because they went to the school to study. So that's the kind of tragedy. And then climate related impacts. One of the high altitude desert area, Leh, faced heavy precipitation in the second week of August, around 8th of August. They had this debris flows in the year 2009, and around more than 145 people, they got killed, and due to collapse of the sun-baked brick made buildings, made buildings, they actually collapsed because of those heavy precipitation which was not expected, and it is said to be due to changing climatic conditions. Then debris flows in Manchari in Pithoragarh district. Around 43 people, two of the villages, La and Jekla, they were completely washed away. And the stones which come along with such debris flows are very blunt and sharp and cut away even the parts of the body. You can see this body which is being recovered doesn't have a head. So head has been completely cut off due to the boulders they came along with the debris flow. Then the Karwar in Karnataka. Remember 2009 when there were floods, landslides happened, and people were buried in the. And you can see they were there in the position they were before the landslide. So it's really very sensational scene to recover such bodies from those spots. Then another instance of Malappuram in the year 2007. So 2005, Joshimath Lamgarh landslide. Almost around 5,000 people, they were trapped. So whole of the road which was there to access that place was completely washed away by the landslide, and people were rescued through a tunnel. So these kind of instances we come across. Goa landslide, I remember around 12 people in the year 2005, they were buried, and during the rescue operations even the bodies were cut off because they didn't know how to rescue them. Similar landslides in the northeastern parts, and the Parechu Lake, which was found in the Tibet area, cross-border issue. And it was found in the year 2004 and got breached in the year 2005. And the whole of this water came along the Satluj river valley causing no loss of the bridges, piers, road sections, and many other structures along the river side. And the 2003 Varnavath landslide, which happened, this is photographed just a day before of 25th September 2003, and this is of 26th, just a day before and after. You can see how the landslide affected almost 400 buildings at the foothills of the slopes. So these are the hotels which were located just at the base of this slope of the panoramic view I showed of the Varnavath Hills. And all these three hotels, this photo is just on the 25th evening, and you can see 26th. You will not even find the traces. They are completely buried and collapsed under these debris. Similarly, many such other reports from Buddha Kedar in the year 2002 August, almost about 99 cattle were lost and 28 human casualties were reported from different villages. Khetgaon cloudburst. So not one or two, almost every year from 2022 I am showing you on annual basis. Even in Kerala, I remember there was Ambudi landslide, which happened on say 9th or 10th of November 2001, when people were actually celebrating and attending a marriage party, and suddenly the landslide happened and they were engulfed by the landslide and killed alive. So that kind of situations. 2001 Fata landslide, which killed almost 15 people. Then the landslide at Sukidang, which actually brought the way of even army. It's not just the issue of social and economical concern, but even the strategic concern too. And often if you have visited the hill area, we park vehicle on both sides of the landslides and cross the landslide on foot and take the vehicle from the other side to reach our destination. Now, this instance I am showing you, these are photographs I am not showing from the net or the news, but from the field directly where we have been the witness or involved with it. And we are just standing in front, and you can see then a boulder moved down the hill slope from the adjacent hill, and it's almost 13 people were inside this bus, and a lady saw that boulder rolling down and she cried, and her husband was inside, and all the 13 people, they came out immediately, and as soon as they came out, the boulder struck in front of us, and this was the condition immediately. So you can imagine it looks like as if it is blasted. It's not blasted, it's the impact of the boulders which rolled down from the adjacent slope of a landslide where this bus was parked. So you can imagine if you witness such an instance, what will be the condition. Then the 1998 Malpa landslide, which killed more than 200 people, including the famous dancer Pratima Bedi. And thereafter, in fact, a lot of discussions took place in the Parliament, Government of India, and they constituted 3 task forces under Ministry of Science and Technology. I will tell you more details when we will come to management of such landslides. Ukimat landslide. The Malpa landslide actually happened on the midnight of 17th and 18th August 1998. And the same time, the village at Ukimat, it was completely washed away, and the debris, because of the steep gradient of the slope, overrided on the other side of the slope to almost 1 to 1.5 kilometer, and almost more than 100 people, they got killed at this particular site. And another important means Ongi landslide, where 4 laborers along with the bulldozer, which are often kept for clearing the debris from the landslide during the monsoon period, they all were washed away. And the height of this landslide was almost 500 meters. Then the famous landslide of Nainital Sherka Danda, which is this is one of the archival photo of the British period, where if you have visited Nainital, there is a lake, and by the lake there is a ground, and this ground was actually the debris which came down from the Sherka Danda hill landslide on 18th September 1880, when more than 150 people, they were killed by the landslide. So just to sensitize you, I showed you historical records, some of the landslides, where the buildings, the roads, the bridges, and the people's lives have been staked. And now, keeping all this in mind, the various efforts and interventions were made by Government of India, and one of the first efforts, as I told you, was after the Malpa landslide, 3 task forces. First task force was on landslide hazard zonation. It was required to know what are the different degrees of landslides that are likely to happen in a particular territory. So what should be the techniques to map landslide susceptibility? And this was the task given to Geological Survey of India. The second committee task force which was formed in 1998 was on geotechnical investigations. It was coordinated by DST, and the chair was Professor Yudhvir, who was former head of the civil engineering department at IIT Kanpur. So he, along with the other experts, made a proposal of what kind of geotechnical investigation must be done in order to ensure the safety of the slopes. Then the third task force, which was actually focusing on land use regulations and planning, was coordinated by Ministry of Environment and Forests. Now it is termed as Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. And all these 3 task forces submitted their report to the Department of Science and Technology, Ministry of Science and Technology. Later on, after the National Disaster Management Authority was constituted in the year 2005, they formed national guidelines on management of landslides and avalanches in the year 2009. It took almost 3 years. I remember I was one of the members of the core group and the consultation group on formulation of these national guidelines. And right from the year 2006, February 2006, the zero draft was submitted. It took 3 years of consultation, and the release of guideline took place in June 2009. So these guidelines actually provided the time-bound regulatory and non-regulatory framework to institutionalize landslide hazard mitigation efforts, apart from enhancing the capacity of the society to take appropriate measures to reduce the risk or avoid the risk and the costs associated with these landslide hazards. Now, subsequent to the 2009 national guidelines, it was required to actually formulate the strategy, and this was done almost after 10 years as National Landslide Risk Mitigation Management Strategy in the year 2019 to accomplish the targets as per Sendai framework for DRR, and also collaborate and develop strategies for disaster risk reduction. So these were the interventions which were made by the Disaster Management Authority at the national level. These are the 2 guidelines. You can find the copy of these guidelines for your details at nidm.gov.in as well as ndma.gov.in under the head of guidelines from the home page. Now these guidelines, which were constituted in the formulated in the year 2009, had different chapters focusing on different perspectives. The first thing that we carried out was assessing the landslide hazards, vulnerability and risk assessment, and putting them into a multi-hazard concept as per our national policy on disaster management. Then evaluating the current existing landslide remediation practices as well as the gaps amongst them, and followed up by the research and development, monitoring and early warning system for landslides. And this was required that the knowledge and these works are present with the different institutions and experts. So there was a need for networking, linkage and coordination. So knowledge network and management was provided through this guidelines. And without training and of human resources and adequate enhancement of their capacities, it is not possible to manage landslides. So therefore, capacity building and training, they were also given a special attention. Besides, then until and unless all citizens are made aware, informed and prepared, we will not be able to achieve our targets. So chapter was also written on public awareness and education. And finally, we may not be able to avoid or prevent and mitigate all kind of landslides, and nature is mightier than the man. So therefore, chapter was also given to emergency preparedness and response. And finally, in order to regulate the land use, building bylaws and construction practices or developmental codes and standards, the regulation and enforcement in terms of techno-legal and techno-financial regimes were also proposed in the guidelines. So this is how we had worked. In the stages, actually specific attention and thrust areas were considered. And the first thrust area, it was considered to develop early warning system for landslides, particularly for the rain-induced landslides and water-induced landslides. Then preparedness, prevention and mitigation by leveraging science and technology. Let me tell you that there were certain agenda points which were given by our Honorable Prime Minister way back from 3rd to 5th of November 2016 during the first post-Sendai Asia Ministerial Conference, that was 10-point agenda on disaster risk reduction and resilience, in which he had also focused and emphasized on applications and leveraging use of science and technology towards disaster risk assessment, prevention, mitigation and response. Then spatial technologies are very much useful for broad regional analysis and assessments. So therefore, integration of spatial technologies into identification, monitoring and mitigation mechanisms. The third point which was given attention was risk reduction through holistic and integrated approach. Because piecemeal ad hoc approaches do not work well, so therefore it was required to impose and follow the holistic and integrated approach. Now landslide disaster risk reduction can be taking place in a phased manner, in a logical manner, so that it becomes more efficient and functional. And then finally, there are different stakeholders for disaster risk reduction which need to be brought on the same board for the implementation. So the different part or stakeholders have different functions, roles and responsibilities. So landslide hazard mapping, as I told you, one of the tasks given to the Geological Survey of India, and they have national level landslide susceptibility mapping mission, through which they have almost now at present done a landslide susceptibility mapping of almost 90% of the landslide prone areas, and in the scale of 1:50,000 scale, followed with the monitoring and early warning system. Geological Survey of India is also the nodal agency for landslides management within the country, and they are also working on development and validation of an early warning system for the landslides, particularly with reference to rainfall induced landslides. Awareness generations workshops are being organized by them, and NIDM being mandated by the Disaster Management Act for all kinds of disasters is also undertaking programs including the webinars, online training, physical face-to-face training programs, workshops and conferences for awareness generation and capacity enhancement. Capacity building is also one of the mandates as per the Act. Section 42, subsection 9, we are following up these initiatives, and also uh, to develop mountain zones regulations and policies, and as part of the recommendations for the 15th Finance Commission, which has allocated adequate amount of funds for the specific hazards as well as multi-hazard approaches. A landslide risk mitigation scheme has been developed to implement landslide mitigation in different parts of the country as a special purpose vehicle. On the other hand, we have been working from an IDM from the international level and at the national levels to develop and to study different type of construction practices. And this is one of the diagrams I am sharing with you, which is indicating a poor hillside construction practices, which need to be actually abundant and dejected, while there are good hillside practices which need to be followed. So how can we actually undertake proactively preventive and mitigative measures in case we want to develop structures and projects in the hilly terrains for our own sustenance and safety or development and growth. So these kind of designs and guidelines and standards, they are likely to help us a lot. Now there are number of techniques, because time is short, so I'm not discussing those techniques in detail, but we have to take care of it and then work on it. So accordingly we must take adequate preventive and protective measures in case of landslide. I'm also showing you some of the cases from the field beside the sketches and which we have drawn for illustrating to the people. And these are the examples from the field where people have done some kind of constructions along the drains, which is not good and which need to be actually stopped. Then construction along the contours, which is good, maintaining while the drainage measures and optimizations of the slope gradients. So all these are actually working towards the safety. So what are the good practices? What are those bad practices which we can learn from the field or share with others have to be there. Now the other impact which has been indicated where landslides also happen is earthquakes. There are earthquake triggered and induced landslides, and also earthquake impose other kind of destructions and devastation. One of the first earthquake that I happened to encounter was an earthquake in Uttarkashi district with the magnitude about 6.6 on the 20th October 1991. This is one of the bridges that had failed during this earthquake, and then followed by many other earthquakes. I can count you earthquakes which happened almost on every 2-year basis. We had actually in 1991 in Uttarkashi. Then in 93 we had earthquake in Latur in the southern part of the country. Then in 1995 we had earthquake in Himachal Pradesh in Mandi district. Then 97 we had an earthquake in Jabalpur, and then in 1999 an earthquake struck in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand, now current Uttarakhand. And then the Gujarat earthquake in 2001, And in 2004, we had the Indian Ocean tsunami. 2006, we had earthquake in Manipur. Then 2008, we had an earthquake in Kashmir, October 8, we had an earthquake in Kashmir, Muzaffarabad area. And then similarly, we had an earthquake on 18th September 2011 in Sikkim. And then we had a earthquake in Nepal in 2015. No, so many earthquakes have been striking in and around us and causing heavy casualties. You can see how many people they were killed and reported to be killed in earthquakes due to various regions, and in Latur where we did not expect earthquake, and in Sikkim. So engineering come to play in this particular area. In the inaugural, the mention was made about Professor A.S. Arya. In fact, earlier at that time it was University of Roorkee, now IIT Roorkee had a Department of Earthquake Engineering and also a Center of Excellence on Disaster Mitigation and Management. And this department actually worked quite a lot in developing the designs and standards for earthquake resistant construction, retrofitting and reconstruction in earthquake prone areas. Besides that, close to it is Central Building Research Institute that has also worked in the area of earthquake resistant structures, designing and constructions. So these are some of the consequences that are there, and you know that how we are trying to actually propose the flexibility through the reinforcements. But even these steel bars of very thick dia, about 16 to 20 millimeter, they also get bent and failed if they are not appropriately given an adequate cover and also adequate closing and bracing in terms of the rings that we are putting at appropriate level. And the NVAS movements. I had the fortune to study earthquake even in Turkey during March, February 2010, when an earthquake struck the eastern province of Alaji in Turkey, and the landslides also happened, and enmassment of buildings were observed due to the sliding of the ground mass in a collective manner, aggregated manner. And these are kind of cracks and failure of the school buildings, and within the school building you can see how fortunately this earthquake had happened early in the morning when students were not there in the school, so very few casualties happened only at the residential areas but not in the schools. So therefore it was quite better, but there were damages to their walls and their interior, and even the slender tall structures, they also failed in the mosque and other areas. Similarly, I could see similar situations in Taiwan, China and Japan, where earthquakes have been happening, and they are trying to actually keep record of their memory of the people killed and establishing memorial parks and then those areas where the earthquake had affected, and also the ground conditions. So you can see that even the railway tracks, they were affected, and these were maintained, and the photographs were taken along that, and history was written alongside. So these kind of girders, even they can get twisted and affected. The Chichi earthquake had actually happened in the year 1999 and affected this region, and that even memorials, they have sketches outside indicating the areas affected, the houses, the roads and other regions geographically in the mountainous parts. So you can see how they have put up these various structure. I remember an earthquake which struck in the afternoon of 12th May 2008, and many buildings were badly damaged. This is one of those buildings which were damaged during the Sichuan earthquake. Sometimes it's also known as Sichuan earthquake in China, and these are the kind of destructions which were observed at that time. And but the Chinese actually did not abolish all these buildings. They kept it preserved using certain reinforcement for public to learn lesson from such constructions. That where did we go wrong, and what should we do? So all these were actually field learnings. Excursions were taken from the masses, from the even from the professionals, to learn about what went right and what went wrong, and the reconstruction for considering the earthquake safety measures in the new place with the new constructions. So you can see that they took adequate measures in our country also. Dr. Deepa was telling around 59% which fall under zones 3 to 5. We have 4 zones, 2 to 5. Zone 1 has been merged with the zone 2 after the Latur earthquake in 1993. So therefore, the attention was given after the no NDMA was established. The first one of the first guidelines were on management of earthquakes, issued in April 2007, which actually put up the context of the earthquake distribution within the country and its impact. As I told you, so many earthquakes, they have also struck the country in the different part of the nation, and therefore we had different regions, different typology of the buildings, and different construction techniques, and living life cultural habits and traditions of the people. So the 6 pillars which were thought about through the guidelines included the earthquake resistant construction, particularly 90 to 95% of our stock of the building is existing constructions, but about 5 to 10% is new constructions in which it was proposed to implement the earthquake resistant features through the code 1893 of the Bureau of Indian Standards, and also implementation of the National Building Code of 2016, and selective seismic strengthening of the existing building through retrofitting of the structures and the lifeline structures or infrastructure, regulations and enforcements, awareness and preparedness among the masses, then capacity development for learning about the various codes, standards, designs, and other practicing manuals and guidelines. And finally, we need to actually strengthen our emergency response, and our National Disaster Response Force conducts trainings on collapsed structures, search and rescue operations, and this had been very useful because our NDRF actually supported at the international level during the operations after the tsunami in Japan in 2011 and earthquake in Nepal during 2015. This is some of the simplified guidelines for the people to learn about the architectural design, the structural design, and the interior designs of any building structures for the safety from earthquake perspective. And nowadays, even in terms of regulatory measures, we are making the professionals accountable besides the artisans, masons, contractors, and other house owners. So nowadays, there is a concept of disaster risk auditing, and also for the existing constructions, the retrofitting guidelines, which are providing adequate measures based on the prioritization of those structures and the interventions to be made and retrofitting to be adopted. Besides the technical measures, there have been social and traditional wisdom that has been there with proven records. One of the important such structures I would like to share with you is Firol, that we found during our studies at the time of Uttarkashi earthquake way back in 1991. We found there were some structures which were still standing beside the impact of the earthquake, where even the newly constructed building had failed. So these structures were named as Firol, and they were found in the Rathal village. And these are the kind of reinforcements with the timber and the stone cut stones they were doing. And such buildings were found to be quite stable in against the earthquake vibrations. Then from the global experiences also we had tried to learn. We have SARC Disaster Management Center, which is currently hosted with GIDM, and also we have been working for international conferences and program with East Asia Summit, and working on earthquake risk reduction. This is one of the examples from Taiwan, where a school building got collapsed, and the school building was kept intact to learn from its design and structural failures and shortcomings. Besides that, I have also found that these countries, they have also established memorial museums into which they are keeping the memories of the earthquake time. This is Wanchuan, I told you, 12th May 2010, when the building failures took place, and also creating simulation centers, experience centers, in which you can actually sit in a room and see how an earthquake vibration of magnitude 6 will actually act and how you will behave. And similarly, 7 or 8, you can do it. Then there are education and prevention centers as well. This is no, that earthquake took place around 1:30 p.m. on that day. You can see the clock stopped, and these kind of clocks which were recovered after the earthquake and found to be no non-functional due to the vibrations, they were kept in the museum. So many clocks, you can see almost every clock showing the same time, 1:30 or 1:28 or 27, when the earthquake struck and affected it. And then prevention and education center, making students learn about how the earthquake happened. Why do the earthquake happen? You must have heard about plate tectonics, thrust fault, and other structures or volcanic activities, ring of fire, where most of the earthquake have been reported. So the prevention and education centers are for students to learn about the earthquake structure, composition, and tectonics, so that they know the likelihoods of an earthquake in a particular area wherever they go, showing them faults in the field. And then we come to the floods. Now I talk to you two major disasters in the hills. The third one is the flash floods. Flash floods, most people will talk to you about the Kedarnath floods, but then these floods actually occurred even in year before also, and years before as well, but were not taken care well. So therefore they go on repeating. किसी शायर ने कहा ना कि जगाना आता है उसे कई तरीकों से, दरों पर दस्तक देने खुदा नहीं आता, पड़े रहो सहमे हुए यूं ही अगर हवाओं के परमान नहीं था. So God tries to awaken and send alerts to us, but we are not giving due attention and therefore fall victim to it. So this is one of the cases which I can show to you. Before this particular event of Kedarnath tragedy happened, where the Chorabari lake it got burst due to the breaching of the Moranic Dam, which was holding that water, and also along with that, the water came along the Saraswati River tributary as well as the Mandakani, which is actually a tributary of the Alaknanda River, and all these because of heavy discharge and influx of both easterlies and westerlies brought down huge volume of water along with the sediment, causing lot of devastation, erosion and landsliding along that river, and as well as the deposition of this debris along sides of the river wherever it got slowed down. One of the impacts was the SSB training camp, which was also affected by the erosion and debris deposition at that time. Similarly, there are many other disasters, and I am just covering them very briefly because it's not possible to cover them all completely. So, but I would like to bring your attention to all these different type of hazards, be it landslide, earthquake, flood, or cyclones, or cyclone-related floods. So flood may be because of several reasons, maybe landslide dammed lake outburst flood, glacial lake outburst flood, or rain induced floods, or due to artificial dam breaching floods. So, or many similar water bodies which can fail. So Odisha super cyclone is very infamous because thousands of casualties happened on 29th October 1999, and also the floods which happened in Mumbai in July 2005, and it's happening almost on an annual basis now in all urban areas. Then the Srinagar floods which took place in September 2014. So kind of inundation and unexpected floods, they cause huge damages and people are caught unprepared and uninformed. Similarly, the December 2015 Chennai floods, urban areas, they are now having more risk. Even the airports, they get affected by such floods. And then this was the winter monsoon which caused more problem and heavy precipitations. Bangalore floods, Kerala floods, so and droughts and chemical disasters, again wildfire I told you. Besides that, we had incidents of the fire incidents in Vijag in May 2020, and also in Buri Dihing Guwahati river system in February 2020, and Hajira plant in Gujarat in September, and in Rajasthan also we had a fire in oil depot on the decadal anniversary of that Odisha super cyclone, that is the 29th October 2009 at about 1930 hours. And then the urban fires in terms of our arrangements in the school, colleges, for the workshops, for the conferences, for the circuses, and these are some of the examples I'm quoting you. When 70 children got killed in a Bangalore circus fire, and around 442, including students, faculty, teachers, and parents, they lost their lives on 23rd December 1995 in a school function fire at Dabali in Haryana, and the Kumkumanam fire in Tamil Nadu, and Opar cinema fire in Delhi. So many instances, and then the natural forest fires which are also burning the wood and also causing ecosystem loss. Bhopal gas tragedy, I talked to you in the inaugural. The exact figures, it's very difficult to actually capture, but the impacts were felt for long term due to the continued impact, and the super cyclones which happened during the COVID-19. But that's not all negative story. There is a positive story also, let me share with you. is in terms of our scientific developments of modeling, forecasting, and early warning. Cyclones, rains, we are able to predict well. Now even their tracks and the timing of their landfalls, they have been predicted well. And the best stories are that we had thousands of casualties during Odisha super cyclone in 1999. But I was studying the similar cyclone and the year 2013. I remember 8th to 12th of October 2013. The Phylon was reported by our India Meteorological Department, which is the nodal agency for forecasting cyclones and weather conditions. So this was well traced, and we did not face any casualty. In fact, after the cycle due to cyclone, in fact, some of the deaths did happen, but because of post cyclone floods which had happened, but not because of the cyclone, because people were evacuated, and we got almost 11 million people evacuated, 1.1 million, sorry, 11 lakh people evacuated at that time. And these were the situations that we had. Tsunami again on 26 December 2004. And our high power committee, which was constituted way back in 1999 and submitted its report in 2001, classified all these disasters. Almost 32 different type of disasters was mentioned and classified in 5 different categories. And this is basically what everybody need to understand: hazards, vulnerability, capacity, exposure, and location to assess the risk type, level, and actions to be taken. So we say disaster is a Latin word which is constituted by 2 words, des and ester. Des means bad, ester means star. So try to form one of these kind of bad stars where risk is fierce due to the meeting together of the hazards, vulnerabilities, exposures, and location at a particular point of time. And therefore we have high risk, and in order to cover that risk, we have a risk management cycle which doesn't get started with the event, but starts with the history of the events and the scientific analysis, in which we try to identify the hazards and assess them well, and also the vulnerabilities of the elements exposed to these hazards, and evaluate the risk and take adequate preventive and mitigative measures. For the remnant disasters, we have preparedness planning, prediction and early warning, as well as the response preparedness and recovery planning. So all these are the actions in terms of risk management cycle that we undertake for risk management. Now, since been given to cover the risk management, so I will broadly give you with the multi-hazard approach that risk management option. The first risk management option we say after assessment and identification based on all these kind of events to avoid that risk. Avoidance is possible only if you have mapped those risks and you can identify which are the safer areas where you can go for construction and development or growth. So therefore, avoidance is the first action to be taken up in any risk management option, and we call it as outright avoidance of adverse effects of the hazard, their locations and their proximities. So intent is to avoid the impact by taking advanced action. Then prevention is actually those activities which are undertaken to provide outright avoidance of the adverse impacts of hazards and means to minimize related harm. Means what you do is actually remove the cause of the disaster so that it does not happen, or remove the cause of the consequence so that you don't face the adverse consequences. So these two are possible by taking adequate studies on the factors and causes of disasters and their consequences. The third is, if I cannot prevent, then I can lessen them. in terms of their number of incidences or the impact, degree of the impact. So lessening or limiting the adverse impact of hazards is called as mitigation, and this mitigation is possible through both structural as well as non-structural measures. Structural measures are actually the physical interventions in terms of construction techniques and technologies, and the non-structural measures are basically the regulatory and enforcement framework. So this again is also referred here, which I just mentioned to you. And then the preparedness. Preparedness is in terms of awareness, information, knowledge, and resources. So we build our knowledge and capacities of each individual, institution, and system so that we can appropriately respond in any disaster situations and recover from it as quickly as possible. So it would require anticipation of that particular disaster risk, response, and recovery operations. Response is actually limited to the actions taken during the event or the incident taking place beyond our coping capacities and affecting our lives, economy, environment, assets, and infrastructures. So we try to search, rescue, evacuate, provide them relief, first aid, and rehabilitation and other support to the affected population and the victims. Then finally, recovery is springing back or bringing back to that normal situation which was in existence just before the disaster happened. So how do you come back to that normalcy which was there before the disaster? So therefore, you need to have some policies to restore those facilities and also to go for reconstruction, relocation, and redevelopment. So in that, the major consideration is build back better, which is actually the fourth priority action under the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction. So I'll just not go with it, but there is one more word which is very popular nowadays. Is we are not only talking about risk reduction but also resilience. Now, what is this resilience? This resilience has been defined in terms of ability of a system, community, or society exposed to hazards to resist, absorb, accommodate to, and recover from the effects of a hazard in a timely and efficient manner, including through the preservation and restoration of its essential basic structures and functions. So basically, it's a very holistic approach of abilities enhancement to actually assess, resist, respond, and recover from any adverse situations in a timely and efficient manner, or not allowing those situations to happen. Okay, so this is what is required, and for this we need to have a multi-hazard, multi-sectoral, and multi-level approach. So and as you are conducting this training as interdisciplinary training, it is very, very important. No single discipline, no single sector may be able to address the multiprongity of disasters. Therefore, we must collect, like you have done in this collaboration with GIDM and Medosa Government Engineering College. So similarly, efforts are required for more connectivity, collaboration, coordination to carry out our functions. This is HFS. This all I have mentioned to you during my inaugural, and these 4 actions, I think everybody of you must know the 4 priority actions and the global 7 global targets. The 4 priority actions are understanding disaster risk. The second priority action is first is understanding disaster risk. Second is strengthening disaster risk reduction for resilience. Third priority action is investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience. And the fourth priority action is enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better in recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. So these four priority actions are very, very important. And the 7 global targets are in terms of reduction in number of deaths per lakh of population, reduction in number of affected population, that also again in terms of per 100,000 persons, and reduction in economic losses. The fourth one is reduction in damage to critical facilities, particularly the medical and the educational facilities. You can see how the importance has been given to health and education. The other three priority targets are national and local level strategies, the fifth one. The sixth one is to provide support to the developing nations, and seventh one is access to early warning information. We say in English, a stitch in time saves 9. So early warning does help us in saving human lives and reducing the casualties or the number of the affected population as well as economic damage. The 17 sustainable development goals, they are also interrelated with the Sendai framework. You can see that the 60s, almost 2/3 of the casualties, they happen in poverty-laden countries or developing countries, and that is because of economic conditions, where SDG is also referring to no poverty, and those poor people, they are also facing the famines and malnutrition. So zero hunger, good health, hygiene is there, education quality, which is also again given attention in SDG as well as SFD. So if you will go through all these, because shorter time I will not read every point, but you can see that all of them are interrelated with SFDRR, and similarly the climatic conditions, which are also leading to uncertain, unexpected, and emerging threats. And the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate also suggested to consider the weather and extreme weather events and climate events to be considered along with vulnerabilities and exposures for disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. So our national policies, the national plan, and which is revised in 2019 November, they are all looking into it, and the Prime Minister's 10-point agenda. I'll just go through this 10-point agenda because this is what our nation is following for implementation nowadays. So the first point which Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji mentioned was all development sectors must imbibe the principles of disaster risk management. That means no disaster should be unsafe, and every disaster development should consider the principles of disaster risk management. The second is work towards risk coverage for all, starting from poor households to small medium enterprises to multinational corporations and national states. So what it requires is right from the individuals, institutions to the systems and the states. This should be followed. Then the third is encourage greater involvement and leadership of women in disaster risk management. Women being the caregivers and the motivators and leaders, their involvement will be of importance in strengthening disaster risk management. Then investment in risk mapping globally. This is also one of the priority actions. You can see their priority action 3, where we talked about investment in risk mapping, and fifth was leveraging technology to enhance the efficiency of our efforts. So I also mentioned to you in using the geospatial technology when I was talking to you about landslide risk management. And sixth is develop a network of universities to work on disaster issues. This has already been done by National Institute of Disaster Management (NIDM) by establishing inter-university institutional network on disaster risk reduction and resilience. And then seventh one was utilize the opportunity provided by social media and mobile technology. During COVID, you may have seen that most of the messages spread faster through the social media and mobile technology than otherwise. So therefore, that point was actually highlighted way back in 2016 by the Honorable Prime Minister. Then eighth point was build on local capacity and initiative. All actions take place at the grassroots levels until as the local capacity strategies and initiatives are not strengthened, we will not be able to achieve our target of national policy in terms of zero casualty and disaster free resilient nation. So therefore that has to be built up. And the ninth point is opportunity to learn from disasters must not be wasted. You can see that I have already reported to you that we are documenting disasters systematically in order to actually examine the lessons learned and incorporate them in our way ahead. The last one, 10th point was bring about greater cohesion in international response to disaster. You may remember that when the Nepal earthquake took place on 25th April 2015, it was our Honorable Prime Minister who spoke to the Prime Minister of Nepal immediately and extended all kind of cooperation and collaboration. So I think I will escape this because already I've briefed to you in many ways about this and national plans and national actions. This system must be known to you. In fact, that is always required. So system is at the three levels. We have administrative system, the central, state and the district level, where we have constituted the National Disaster Authority under the chairmanship of Prime Minister, then State Disaster Authority under the chairmanship of the Chief Minister. In the UTs, it is the Lieutenant Governors, and the District Disaster Authority under the chairmanship of District Magistrates. And also we have established National Emergency Operations Center, Response Center, the State Emergency Operations Centers, and the District Emergency Operations Centers. For the adoption in terms of response, I will tell you, this is actually the draft of the first curriculums that were developed with the AICT way back in the year 2009. Not only provided the curriculum but also the reference materials. This is what we did with UGC, and also currently we are also developing curriculums for various courses jointly with the universities and other institutions. And this is a slide which I just wanted to share because this is indicating the system we are following for response, which we have named it incident response system, which is a replica of incident command system, where we have a responsible officer, incident commander, and three section chiefs called operation section chief, planning section chief, and logistics section chief. The incident commander does have a deputy incident commander supported with three officers called information officer, safety officer, and liaison officer. For air operation, there is a separate nodal officer. So these are all sections and the branches and divisions. They have different functions in terms of the mobilization of resources, actions, and operations. So this is these are kind of our emergency operation centers that we have. You can see one of the emergency operation centers at Chennai from Tamil Nadu. And during COVID, we also started with telecounseling center for psychosocial counseling. So these are the local authorities, Greater Chennai corporations, telecounseling centers. And we have now in advance these rehabilitation shelters. These are the cyclone shelters in Odisha, and also mobile apps called TN Smart and many other like Mosam and Damini and many. And Arogya Setu you have used that we have Ayushi Sanjeevani centers of excellence and working with the communities and preparing their community level resource and response centers and maps. You can see different and giving trainings to the different functionaries from the central, state, and local governments, and also exposing them to tabletop exercises and different type of exercises, and familiarizing them with state-of-art technologies, including GIS, GPS, navigation, and other geospatial technologies, and taking them to the field and exposing them and training them right at site. And documentation, online trainings also being continued, self-study programs, webinars, workshops that we do after each of these events, including the highest level of the dignitaries. You can see Dr. P.K. Mishra is currently the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, members of NDMA formerly, and currently Vice Chairman of SDMA on national conferences we are holding, including the Minister of State and Union Ministers and members, and developing the training materials, reading materials for the various, and also publishing a journal on biannual basis. It is UGC care listed and doing well, and also developing many guideline documents on these kind of. But no one can do it alone. We have to join hands with each other, act together as a team. Team means together each achieve more. So you can see the challenges are big, and nature is mightier than the man. So man must try to learn. We must learn to live in harmony with the nature, so that we face the least adversities. We had collaborations with Government of Japan and NILIM, PWRI, and other institutes hold workshops and programs, not only helping ourselves, we are also helping other countries like the African countries, and conducting for SAARC region also. So we had a lot of publications, programs, and part of our international agreement, Kyoto Protocol, on landslides, and our dream is to build a disaster-free and resilient India. This stone I saw on a crossroad in Japan. I couldn't recognize. I asked my friends, and they say, Surya, Japan is prone to earthquakes, landslides, tsunami, avalanches, and various other disasters. So we teach our society to behave like this stone. If you will move this stone in any direction, it will quickly regain its position. So our Japanese society have to be resilient like this stone to quickly regain its position as it was before the disaster happened. So therefore, this is a social symbol of disaster resilience, which is put on crossroads. I think we also need similar things. And this is my last slide, where I found that during my actions in the field, I was supported not only by government, administration, line departments, NGOs, and the volunteers, and many others, but also the wildlife. When I was trying to rehabilitate the area and undertake actions for DRR, the monkey came with its baby on the car, which was provided by the son of the priest of the famous Vishwanath temple in Uttarkashi. So the wild hostile life becomes hospitable and affectionate to you if you do good, and disaster management does provide you those opportunity to save lives and save yourselves and protect others. So with these words, I'll close this presentation. If you have any questions, we can have questions and answers now. I'm sorry, I'm short of time, so because of some other engagements. So
Thank you.
please.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful and this words of learning session. Sir, we express our heartfelt gratitude for sparing your valuable time from your busy schedule and agreeing to provide a keynote session. I would like to say that your talk enlightened and widened our vision on disaster risk management. It was truly a wonderful and knowledgeable experience. We learned many things all.
If there are any questions from participant,
Any questions from participants?
Yes, Mr. Govind Raj, you have a questions? I will enable your mic, sir.
Yeah. Dear sir, thanks for the wonderful session. It was an eye-opening session for us all. And I would like to ask one question. How come we know that we are staying in a vulnerable area? That means Nalod, India. How come? What are the vulnerabilities areas like that? How come we know?
Okay, thank you for this question. Actually, at the national level, we have got mega scale maps, which we called as Vulnerability Atlas of India, where our Building Materials Technology Promotion Council actually prepared various type of hazard and vulnerability maps throughout the country, including for earthquake, for landslides, for floods, for wind hazards. But I think when it comes to developmental perspective, you need to work on a larger scale to know the details, because the small scale maps from the national level, they can only be useful in policy planning guidelines and strategies. But when it comes to grassroots level no developments and decisions, then large scale mapping is the required, and that has to be done carried out by our academic and research organizations or the line departments with their respective areas of specialization.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions? Sagar sir, you had a question? Okay. I think yes.
No, madam.
Okay, fine. Okay then, sir, it was truly an amazing lecture on how from scrap to how India built up and how India has improved year after year its current status on disaster management and resilience building. Your 10-point agenda had been a really eye-opener for us. So we really, it has been a very thoughtful presentation from your side. Each and every slide has been very interesting. Sir, along with your well-placed and well-emphasized quotes, we also relaxed and enjoyed while. Sir, your talk on how India performed blended with most updated steps, how India is working on, had been a truly interesting experience for us. We are really, really very happy and feel express our sincere gratitude for you to have as our keynote expert. So it has built our interest in this training more and more. Thank you very much, sir. And also to agree upon with your time tight schedule, you have accommodated our later stage and keynote address requirement. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much for gracing the occasion and enlightening us.
So Deepaji, then Viratji has to say something.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Virat wanted to say something, or we can close it now with my personal thanks to all the organizers and also the delegates and the participants of this program who patiently listened to my lecture and presentation. And I would regret not being able to share more time and information, as you know that disaster management is such a big area now that even if you spend 2 years, you will not be able to touch upon all the aspects and dimensions of disaster management. So reducing them in a lecture is really a very difficult, daunting challenge. But anyway, I tried to share some of my experiences with you because it's almost more than 3 decades I've been working, and so many disasters we have come across, and there is no say for no us to any type of disaster situations. Now the expertise and specializations remain aside, but we have to be very no not challenging in terms of our preparedness to any potential emerging or existing threats or disaster risks. So I think the same way our education sector has also to build our students and a culture of risk assessment, prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response and recovery through utilizing the state-of-art technology and acting in a proactive, holistic, integrated manner. And that's all I wish to every one of you, and hope this program will actually enrich and strengthen all our delegates and participants in their knowledge, information, ideas, and innovations or experiences being shared by distinguished experts from the various organizations and the fields. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Sir, yes, sir. Professor Shalini Singh would like to interact on something. Shall I put her on?
Please.
Professor Shalini, over to you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I would like to ask you regarding the avalanches that is recently being noticed in the Uttarakhand side. So I would like to ask you that these avalanches are being subsequently being added to lead to the landslides also. So what are the mechanisms that from our front that we are taking so that it will not going to lead such a loss of the property and the human which are going on?
Actually, Shalini ji, see, most of these avalanches, they are happening in the high altitude areas where very less civil population would be living. Most of the threats are in fact to our military personnel, army, who is actually posted over there along the borders in the high altitude areas. So most of these casualties which have happened due to avalanches are the army personnel or the tourists and trekkers going in those areas, and very few civil population in those areas getting in actually no affected by the avalanches. However, when we were considering the landslide guidelines, because even avalanches are kind of mass movements, so we considered avalanches along with the landslides in one guideline, which was focusing on landslide as well as avalanches as National Disaster Management Guidelines on management of landslides and avalanches. Now we have specialized organizations. For example, you may have heard about Snow and Avalanche Studies Establishment, which was working specifically on these kind of issues, and they have very good strength in terms of potential areas of the avalanches and the likelihood of avalanche in a given weather condition or situation. So they have done a lot of work. Now that SASE has been renamed as DGRE, Defense Geoinformatics Research Establishment, and this is actually due to merger of three DRDO organizations which were working in similar areas. So DGRE is the best institution. They have got specific videos, in fact well made videos on how to assess risk in an avalanche prone area, how to be vigilant, and how to rescue also. So all these are well done by that organization, and they are also informing people in advance of the likelihoods of any avalanche situations. However, there are certain people who go without information and they become trapped or take wrong decisions and put themselves in risk when the avalanches are likely to happen. So these avalanche areas are well marked, and now once it starts, the event starts, in disaster management we say either keep hazard away from you or keep yourself away from the hazard. So then you don't dare to be in front of them. So try to get away from them. And moving in downward direction is not the right decision. Moving away towards the safest nearest upside boundary will be the right decisions. And how to save yourself in a landslide or an avalanche is another thing that need to be known. Sorry. If one gets trapped, one need to know what side it is upside down or right side up, then try to come out of that situation as quickly as possible, as the golden hours for safety of lives are very less in avalanches and landslides. So do's and don'ts in landslides must be well known to these people.
Thank you, sir.
Some question?
Okay. We have one, sir, if you permit, we have one more question from Mr. Pratik Jaiswal.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Hello, sir. Sir, regarding the hazards or disasters that have been happening in Assam and West Bengal, the recent floods, we still don't have a concrete framework for early warning system. They have been in place, but they have not been effective as far to save lives or counter the disaster.
Pratik ji, you are right. That's a thing we have to introspect ourselves, everybody, because see, in disaster management we say if we know, then we can manage, or we can predict, we can manage. But in this case of floods particularly, both weather condition and the ground conditions are well known, and these floods are recurring annual events, and despite that every year there are casualties and damage or losses. So what is actually putting us into those risks? बिहार में एक कहावत कहते हैं, बिहार में भी बहुत फ्लड आते हैं कि वी हैव डोंट टेक इट अदरवाइज एंड मेक इट फॉर्मल, जस्ट इनफॉर्मली आई एम जस्ट टेलिंग यू कि 3 क्रॉप्स लेते हैं हम, राबी, खरीफ एंड रिलीफ. People sometimes go into those flood prone areas and make transitory or temporary structures and constructions and expose themselves to those risks to gain some relief. So that's not the correct practices. So for the generation and early warning, already our Central Water Commission, which is nodal organization for flood early warning, they have done lot of good works, but they are not enforcing authorities. So either the enforcement and regulatory bodies, they have to be too strict not to allow any kind of construction in the prohibited areas pertaining to the river channels and flood prone areas, and also impose adequate restrictions in the restricted areas and allow construction only in the permitted areas. So all these are well defined, and if we will follow actually the zonation maps and also the early warnings being provided by the respective line departments, nodal agencies, maybe we will be able to reduce. For example, in case of cyclones, we have achieved certain successes and which is applauded at the global level. But in case of floods, we mostly have been living close to the rivers, and the floods are not new to mankind. No, since our civilizations have come up, they are all developed along the rivers, and floods have been good in some ways, but bad in other ways. Floods do bring us fertile soils without which we cannot survive. But on the other hand, the impact of the inundation and erosion, they're causing problems. But that is happening alone in the channels and the embankment areas, which we can manage. So I think need to be more vigilant and more enforcements. That's why I talked to you about techno-legal and techno-financial regimes. No, have to be there.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Totally agreed. Totally agreed, sir. And as you say, have highlighted, India has come up a long way, and there is a lot more to go on. But your lecture has been really inspiring, and we can at least proudly say that we have a very good system to follow upon and to look forward, who is continuously improvising for the benefit of India people. Thank you very much, sir. And we are looking forward to interact again with you in future, if you allow us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Ethics is another area that I normally follow. Awareness is not good enough. Our consciousness has to be there. So with these
Yes.
words, I would thank you all for this nice session that I had with you all. So if you allow, I can leave.
Yes, sir. Thank you for again sparing your valuable time for this long lecture. Thank you once.
Last में एक शेयर कह देता हूँ, because you need to
Yes,
change
sir.
attitude.
Yes, sir.
Attitude is your strength, not just knowledge and information. किसी शायर ने कहा कि नजर बदलो नजारे बदल जाएंगे, सोच बदलो सितारे बदल जाएंगे, कश्तियों को बदलने की जरूरत नहीं यारों, दिशा बदलो किनारे बदल जाएंगे. So change your perspectives from risk to safety, and that will help you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaskar, sir.
Yeah, namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request Virat to announce for the next session. Erwin, please stay for a minute.
We have a next session with Dr. on disaster risk management, on local and global perspective. So please all join next session in time. Thank you. Thank you.
Virat, I think you were not clearly audible. Virat? See, Virat was trying to say that the next session will be at 1:30 p.m. Till then, you have a lunch break. We will have a lunch break, right? So let's meet sharp at 1:30
Had it not been properly audible,
Yes, I repeated, ma'am.
Request everyone to join sharp at 1:30 for our next session. Dr. Ripon Kanji from GIDM. So please join in time. Have a good lunch. Enjoy. See you in next session. Link will be posted in the group.